Hey everyone, Rick here, and this is going to be a solo playthrough of the fantastic game Tiny Towns. This is going to be very interesting to see if this actually works. We'll see if I even end up posting this. If I do terribly, embarrassingly bad, I'm probably not going to post this. Or if I do catastrophically bad, or it's so bad that it's humorous, maybe I will still post it. So let's get into this. Let's see how we do in the solo version of the game. And actually, as a variant to the multiplayer version of the game, instead of each player choosing which good or resource to put out on the town, you have this deck of cards, 15 cards, three for each of the 5 different resources. And in the solo version of the game, we're going to draw 3 of these, so there will always be 3 to pick from. You pick one, put it on the bottom of the deck, and replenish it. And we'll go into just a basic overview of what we have here. So first, let's go over the resources. We have wheat, stone, glass, wood, and bricks. These 7 tarot-sized cards are the various buildings that we're going to be trying to create in our town. The cottage is in every game. There's only one of these cottage cards. The rest of these cards, however, there's 4 possibilities. So, as you can see here, they're all shaped like a temple on the back of them. So in your game, you'll shuffle the 4 possibilities up, flip one over, so that in this case, we do have the temple we're playing with, and you do that for the other 5 as well. So I know I don't think the camera can quite pick up the scoring text, but at least hopefully you can see the color patterns necessary in order to put those buildings out. But let's go through what the scoring possibilities are. So the fountain, first of all. 2 points if it's adjacent to another fountain. So by itself, it is worthless. But if I get 2 of them next to each other, that's 2 points apiece. That's a possible 4 points right there. The market. 1 point for each market in the same row or column, not both as that single market. So, for example, this market would be here, and let's say there were markets like this. Let's say somehow I was able to get 4 markets out there. Well, it's 1 point for each market in the same row or column, not both. So you basically choose what's the greater. So in this case, I would score 3 points. I would obviously not want to score 2 points, but if it was something like this, I would say, okay, that's 3 points, because I would choose that row, not that column. So it's 1 point apiece if they're in the same row or column. And there can absolutely be gaps. So it can be something like this. This would still be 3 points. They do not need to be adjacent to each other. The farm feeds 4 buildings that need to be fed anywhere in your town. And the cottage is a building that needs to be fed. Cottages are worth 3 points if they are fed. So the farm, essentially, building one single farm will feed up to 4 buildings anywhere in my town. They don't need to be adjacent. It can be a little cottage way over here. That farm can still feed up to 4 cottages no matter where they are. Obviously, if you have more farms, that doubles it up. So now I can feed up to 8 cottages. And why would I want to do that? Again, cottages are 3 points apiece if they're fed. The farm is not worth any points. Building the farm is what makes the cottages worth points, because the cottages are also useless unless they are fed. Next up, we have the temple. The temple is worth 4 points if adjacent to 2 or more fed cottages. So something like this, for example, that means it'd be 4 points if it's adjacent to 2 or more. So even if it was adjacent to 3, it would still only be worth 4 points. If it was adjacent to 1, it is worth nothing. Has to be adjacent to at least 2. Diagonal is not adjacent. So this would still be a 0 score for the temple. Next up, we have the warehouse. That's these kind of funky looking buildings. They are -1 point for each resource that is harbored within the warehouse. Now, why would you ever put goods in the warehouse then if they are worth negative points? Well, each warehouse can store up to 3 resources. So when another player names a resource, or in the case of the solo game, when a card is picked, that resource can be placed on the warehouse or swap it with another resource already in the warehouse. Basically, what a warehouse does is if I have a display of resources out here that I absolutely hate all of them, I can't use any of them, I can still pick one and I could basically trash it by sticking it in the warehouse, because putting it out on the board somewhere, I may want something else to go there. So the warehouse is just a little building that can store up to 3 resources that I want nothing to do with, but I will get -1 point for each resource stored in the warehouse. And it's also not worth any points on its own either. Finally, we have the almshouse, which is points based on the number of almshouses that have been built. So it just goes up from there, and it's actually very interesting. An even number of almshouses is worth positive points. An odd number of built almshouses is worth negative points. So and there's a little chart here. So if I only built 1 almshouse, at the end of the game, that's worth -1 point. Now, if I built 2 almshouses, that is 5 positive points. If I built 3 almshouses, that is -3 points. So obviously, you're trying to build even numbers of these, but it gets riskier the higher you go. If I want to try to get to 4 and I build 3, I better get to build a 4th, because if I'm stuck with 3, that's going to be negative points at the end of the game. So that is the scoring possibilities of all the buildings that we have out here, except for one completely random possibility. This deck of cards is a monument that is going to be unique to our town. See, if this was a multiplayer game, everyone would have access to build all of those buildings, but each person would be randomly dealt one of these monuments. So this is going to be a building that is strictly ours and ours alone, that we have the potential to build. So I'm just giving that a quick shuffle, and we'll see what our monument ends up being. All right. So for this game, and this is the monument piece that we'll put on the board if we're able to build this. So if we can build this, it's 2 points for each unique adjacent building type. So whenever I build this, obviously I probably want to build it somewhere where there's a possibility of up to 4 adjacent buildings, because each unique building type adjacent to it is 2 points. So that right there would be 4 points. That would also be 4 points because they have to be unique adjacent buildings. So that is another possibility. All right, we are getting ready to start off playing Tiny Towns. So the first thing we do is shuffle the resource deck and draw 3 cards. Here are the first 3 possibilities. Again, we pick one and place the resource. Okay, so hopefully this will be interesting enough to actually watch, and I don't, freak out and get analysis paralysis just sitting here pondering the possibilities. But there are definitely some things that I want to get done for sure. One of which is building a farm, because cottages are worth nothing without farms. The temple's worth nothing without fed cottages. So a farm is an ideal place to start. So let's go ahead and choose wheat as our first possibility. We're going to take a wheat. We can put it anywhere we want. Farms need 2 wheat and 2 wood in a square pattern, and these patterns can be placed in any configuration. So it doesn't have to be exactly as it looks on here. And let's just go ahead and start up in the corner here with a wheat. All right, so that was the wheat. Put that on the bottom of the deck. draw a new resource card, and see where we're at. Well, we have another wheat here. Let's stick with that. I'm going to choose wheat again, grab another wheat, and put it right there. So we're halfway done building a farm. That goes underneath. The next one comes out. Oh, and how lucky are we? Because wood is exactly what we need for a farm. So I will go ahead and put that under the deck and place a wood out there. So obviously we'd love this to be wood, but what are the odds of that happening? No, it is stone. Okay, so we also do want to build cottages and temples. That's kind of my plan for this particular game. Because the way the cards are laid out, you can see what might score you the most points with how they combo together. So we're definitely going to want to build cottages. The cottage does not have to be adjacent to the farm, but it does have to be somewhere where it's adjacent to a temple. We actually have a lot of parts of the temple out here right now. So actually, we know we'll get to cottages eventually, but let's go with a temple for right now. Let's do a stone foundation for the temple. We'll take a stone and put it right here. My theory here with the temple is it has to be adjacent to 2 or more fed cottages. So if I can build a temple in the corner, it can then have cottages on either angle of it. So that's where I'm going with at that point, is stone in the corner to start our foundation of the temple, because yes, you can work on multiple buildings at the same time. Next up is a stone. Well, for what we're looking at right now, stone isn't the most attractive, but glass absolutely is. So let's take a glass and put it right here. Again, following this pattern, we'll stick a glass right there. Now, of course, I could have put it here and then done the 2 reds up this way, but we'll just leave it at that for right now. So that was our glass, and we replace it with a wheat. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and stick with the temple. We're going to put a brick out right there and put that under there, see what we get next. Obviously, we want this to be a wood or another brick. No, it is a glass. Okay, so we're kind of stuck with those 2 buildings for right now. We got to move on to something else, just the way the cards come out. Well, there's a couple possibilities here. We could try to work on our monument, because it does need wheat and glass. But cottages are obviously something we are going to want. So let's go ahead and try and start off with our first cottage. Let's go with a glass, and I'm going to put... No. No, I'm not going to do a glass. I'm going to do a wheat, and I'm going to put the wheat right here. Why is that? Because the way... And I could have put a glass there, I suppose. You have to plan so far in advance, because when I am done with this temple can then be built on any space that has a resource that was used to construct it. So obviously, I'm going to put it in this corner space. The rest of these resources will be removed from the board, freeing up these 2 spots. I'm putting a wheat here because I'm going to build my cottage like this, so that when I do complete it, it'll go right here and be adjacent to the temple. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to start our cottage here. And we have to remember where we're going with all this, because if I forget that I'm doing something with a farm here, then I put this here, and it blocks the farm. The farm is permanently not going to happen. Not necessarily, though, because there's so many things to think about, because obviously if I continue building this cottage this way, I could then put the actual cottage building here, take all the rest of the resources away, and then that'll free up a space for my farm later. But anyway, forgetting all that, that's where I'm putting the wheat. So now, here we go again. Let's please hope for another brick or a wood. And it is a brick. Thank goodness we have completed the temple. As you can see, the temple is complete. So we will now take off all the resources used to complete the temple, put them back, then take the temple piece and put it in one of the 4 spaces where a resource was, and like our plan was, we're going to put it right there in the corner. All right, we are going to refill this spot, and actually this is fantastic, because now we can start working on the cottage that is going to go right there. So let's go ahead and do that. with a glass. We'll take a piece of glass and put it here at an angle. So we have wheat, glass, and brick to make a cottage. Right now we just need a brick, which is up next. So that'll be fantastic. And we got another stone out there. All right, so obviously we're going to go with the brick. Take a brick, put it there. Boom, our cottage is complete. Remove all the resources, and then I can put this anywhere I want. I want it right here, adjacent to the temple. So as soon as we feed this cottage, the cottage will be worth 3 points, and this temple is well on its way to being worth points as well. Right now, this town scores no points. In fact, it's negative points because at the end of the game ends when we can't put anything else in the town. All the spaces are full, either with goods that we can't convert into buildings because they're stuck there, or buildings. Also, you cannot have a good and a building in the same space. Either a good or either a resource or a building per space. Next up, we have a wood. All right, folks, we are cruising. Why? Because this wood is going to allow us to, boom, complete the farm. Awesome. So now I have the tough decision of where I want to put this farm, because I honestly haven't been planning ahead. I don't know what my plans are for that upper section of the board, but I'm just going to stick it in the corner. All right, so 2 wheat, 2 wood, and that was the farm. So as of right now, we have the farm, which is now feeding. It can feed up to 4 cottages. Boom, a cottage right here. That's 3 points for the cottage, which is fed. The temple still needs 1 more fed cottage adjacent to it. So let's go ahead and start work on that second cottage. We have a glass, so we're going to use that glass and put it right here, and we're going to start building our second cottage adjacent to the temple. All right, next up we have a wood. All right, so what do we want to do now? That is a good question. Oh boy. Well, you know what? This almshouse is going to be worth 5 points. All I have to do is build 2 of them. But I have to commit to actually building 2 of them. So let's actually go ahead and give that a shot. I'm going to use one of these stones and put it over here. So I'm going to try to build one up this way. And next up, to replace that stone we just used, is a wheat. The wheat, let's go ahead and just use that right now so we don't forget about it. This wheat is going to help us build that second cottage. Replace that. We have another wheat, another stone, and a wood. Let's go ahead and use that other stone, and we are going to be 2/3 of the way to our first almshouse. Next up, we have another wood. Okay, so once again, none of this is going to help those buildings we're trying to craft right now. So where else can we start to look? Well, fountains are worth 2 points if they're adjacent to another fountain. They only need 1 wood and 1 stone to complete them. Do I want to just maybe stick them up in a corner somewhere? Maybe... See, that's tough because I don't want to start building them somewhere where I want to put something else. But let's go ahead and do that. Let's take a wood. I'm going to put it, oh boy, I'm going to put it right here. Because obviously I'm going to want to finish this almshouse here. I'd like to leave this row for the second almshouse, potentially. We obviously need this space for that cottage. I do want to leave a corner open because I want to build another temple over here potentially. So this kind of leaves, you know, possibilities of where I can then shrink it and have the fountain be there. So I know it's just a lot of like mental gymnastics trying to figure out what you want to do. And okay, so there's a stone. That is not what we're looking for, except for the fact that that would now allow me to build that fountain. All right, let's go ahead and do that then. This stone, I'm going to put it, oh gosh, see? This is tough because depending on where I put it is going to determine where that fountain is actually going to be placed. Okay, let's just go ahead and we'll put it here. And what I'm going to do then is this will be a fountain now, and it is going to be put right here. Hopefully that'll be out of the way of anything we want to do in the future. But in order for that fountain to be worth anything, we have to build another fountain adjacent to it. So hopefully I'll be able to build another one there at some point. All right, boom, glass. Let's go ahead and use this right now because glass is exactly what we need to build that almshouse. And that almshouse, I'm going to stick right in the corner. So now we've freed up some more space up there. That's fantastic. And we have one almshouse. One almshouse alone is worth -1 point. So eventually we need to build another almshouse. Okay, next up, we have a brick. Perfect, because brick is exactly what we need to complete that cottage. All right, so now this cottage is complete. We're going to put it right here adjacent to the temple. So that way, this temple is now worth 4 points. These 2 cottages are fed. So they're 3 points apiece. That temple's 4 points. So there's 10 points right here. That is fantastic. All right, next up we have wheat and wood. And look, our board is completely free of resources. So now it is time to, start anew. What do we want to start on next? I want to build another almshouse, but there's nothing out here to help me with that. I want to build another temple. Nothing out here to help me with that. Another cottage would be nice. Okay. Ideally, I was going to build a temple here. It is going to be impossible to do that now because I was going to have a cottage be here, and I could put resources here in order to make this become a cottage, but in order to have a temple... No, a temple could be here if I positioned the pattern that way. But that's really risky. That's assuming that I'm going to get the parts I need. But let's go ahead and give it a shot. We're going to build a cottage here. All right, so this cottage, going to start out with a wheat right there. Next up, we have a brick, which is what we need for another cottage. Put that there. We just need a glass, and we can build a cottage there. Next up, we have a glass. All right, we are cruising. That is fantastic. This glass is going to go right here. And let's go ahead and build this into a cottage using this space right here. All right, good, good, good. And there is the first part of our next temple we want to do. So let's stick that there. Next up, we have this. Okay, so this is where it's going to be tricky because none of this helps me with the rest of the temple, but wood is necessary for a second fountain. So let's go ahead and try to get that out of the way by putting a wood here, and then we'll put a stone here, condense those to be a fountain here, and then they'll be adjacent to each other. That's the goal. We'll see if that will actually come to pass. All right. Yes, we do need this glass for the temple right here. So as you can see, this temple pattern is going to be rotated like this. So it's going to be glass, stone, brick, brick, like that. All right, so that was our glass placement. We still need stone and more bricks. And there is the stone. Now the question is, I'm definitely going with the stone. Do I want to use the stone here to complete this second well, or do I want to use the stone here and get to work on this temple? Let's focus on the temple right now. Okay, but see, then this happens and we're stuck again. Oh boy, what do we want to do now? This is a tough spot. spot. As it gets more and more condensed, less and less spaces to put things. See, that's why these warehouses would be so powerful. Stick one of those out of the way, and then these resources we don't want, we can start to dump in the warehouse, even though each resource dumped there is worth -1 point. But sacrificing a point sometimes is for the greater good. Oh boy. What do we want to do? Well, you know what? Oh gosh. Okay, let's go ahead and give this a shot. I'm going to go for another fountain at some point. I don't have any plans for these two spaces here. Hopefully, eventually, we can get another fountain next to this one, but this is kind of a dumping ground right now. I'm hoping this is brick or stone. Okay, it is stone. That is good. That is good. So this stone will then come over here and complete this well. So now, I'm sorry, I keep calling them wells. That is a possibility for this card type, but in this particular game they are fountains. Okay, so that is now 2 fountains, which is fantastic because a fountain is worth 2 points if it's adjacent to a fountain. So now this is worth 2 points for being adjacent to that fountain. This fountain's worth 2 points for being adjacent to that fountain. That's 4 points right there. All right, we are still looking for another brick and or a stone. Oh no, it's a wood. That's not good. Potentially. I could risk it by putting a wood right here and then eventually, hopefully, putting stones here. That would complete 2 wells there. But of course, I want to build another almshouse or I'm going to be stuck with negative points. The almshouse is going to go there. So I'd have to get those fountains completed before I could start on another almshouse. But that's what we have to do. So these wheat are just sticking around. I really do not want wheat. Wheat at this point is only good for cottages for me. I will want one more cottage eventually, but I gotta complete this temple first. So this has got to be... Oh, I gotta put out the other wood, so there it goes. That's the other wood. Okay, this has got to be stone or brick. Okay, thank gosh. Though that's the less of the two that I wanted, actually. I really wanted that to be a brick so I could get rid of all this. But stone means I'll put this right here. That will condense this down into another fountain, which is worth nothing right now by itself. That was that stone. This, folks, I don't know what's going to happen if this is not a stone. I honestly don't know. Or glass. Stone or glass. Why glass? Because I can start on my other almshouse by putting a glass here. Oh gosh. See, that's the less of what I actually want this to be. And as you can tell, I have not even started on my monument. And it's too late now. There is no more 4 squares that are free that I'll ever be able to do that. So unfortunately, this palace is not going to be built. But okay, so here's the glass. I'm sticking this here. Folks, I have 2 free spaces left. If I don't get if this is not brick or stone, it's game over. Oh my gosh, thank the Lord. Boom! There is the temple. There it is. So boom, all of that finally frees up those spaces and I can put a temple right here. Thankfully, due to that brick. Okay, but so here's the plan now. We need a cottage to be built here so that it can end up here and be adjacent to this temple, because this temple here is worthless unless there's another cottage there. A stone, I would be okay with stone because we need more stone for the almshouse and we need more stone for this well. And we can now use this wheat, so we're definitely good to go. Oh my gosh! Thank gosh we did what we did Because now look at all this wheat. We only need one more wheat for the rest of the game, and there it is right there. That's the last wheat. The good news is there's only 3 of each resource in this deck. And by putting this on the bottom of the deck, we are likely not going to see it again. So this wheat, we're going to put right here to start our next cottage. We need stone, glass, and bricks. All right, brick is a tough one because I have to put it here. That obviously screws up building a well right there for right now, and it won't let me complete my almshouse. So this has got to be glass. This has got to be stone. So that was that brick. We need glass or stone or it is game over. Okay. Wow, that is fantastic. There's the glass. Boom, there's the cottage. We have that cottage built, which means we are going to place it right there. Perfect, because it is now adjacent to that temple. This temple's worth 4 points. That temple's worth 4 points. These 4 cottages are all being fed by the farm. They're 3 points apiece. That's 12 points. We're looking pretty good right now. We just need to get a second almshouse out here ASAP. I have a bad feeling about this because we need a lot of stone. We need 2 stone just to do that, and we need a 3rd stone to complete this well. And that, there's only 3 stone in this whole deck, so we'll see what we have next. It's a brick. My worst fears are being realized because this is going to be a throwaway. There is nothing that I'll be able to fit there that this brick can go to. So I am just going to, I could use one of the wheats too, because this is a complete throwaway. This is going to be a negative point at the end of the game, because at the end of the game, when all the spaces are full, you wipe away all unused resources, and each empty space that causes is negative 1 point. So this for sure, boom, cements the fact that we are going to have at least 1 negative point at the end of the game. Next up, wood. That's it. That is it. That screws us so badly. Those of you who may be card counting, because I have not been paying attention how far down the stones are, so they could well be at the bottom half of the deck. And so now it is game almost entirely over because we only have 2 free spaces. The almshouse needs 2 stone. There's not going to be room for that, so I'm going to just sacrifice the second almshouse. It's not going to happen. Put that there because at least here there is a possibility of a stone that will turn this into a well. If this is anything but a stone, this is bad news. Nope, it is the worst news. Glass. That's all, folks. That is our completed town right there. So that is Tiny Towns. Let's go ahead and score this up and see what we've got. All right, first things first, get rid of all 5 used resources. 2 woods, 2 glass, and a brick. So first off, you'll notice that's negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 almshouse by itself. I know, when I first put that first almshouse out there, didn't you think, oh, building a second one will be nothing? Obviously not. That's negative 1 point as well, so that is negative 6 we're starting out with. This fountain by itself is worth nothing. This farm is worth nothing. Our points are right here. We only are going to be getting points for this half of the farm, essentially. Let's see what we got. 2 points for the fountain being adjacent to another fountain. 2 points for this fountain being adjacent to a fountain. So there's 4 points there. We have 4 points apiece for the temples because they are adjacent to 2 fed cottages. And the cottages are worth 3 points apiece. So 3, 6, 9, 12. Plus 8 is 20. Plus 4 is 24. 24 points minus 6 is 18 points. Folks, We finished this game of Tiny Towns with a whopping 18 points. So there is a check your score thing here. 18 is on the bottom level of Carpenter. That's right. So ideally 38 or more points, you'd be a Master Architect. Today we got the bottom of the barrel of Carpenter. 18 points. Folks, this is Tiny Towns. I am in love with this game. Obviously, I talked a lot through it, but if I just shut my mouth and was playing to play, this would go like that, because how long's this video? A little over a half hour. So without all my talking and explanations, I could have done this probably in 15 minutes, just placing cubes and replacing them with buildings. With more people, the thing is simultaneous. Because someone with this little hammer will say, okay, this turn, everyone place wood. Everyone takes a piece of wood and puts it in their town. Passes the hammer. Okay, I want glass. Everyone puts glass. And after each person says a resource and everyone places it, that's, you take a look at those cards, see if any of your resources match buildings, place the buildings. So there's no turns. It is just someone names a resource, everyone places it, check to see if a building can be built, pass the hammer, put another resource out. This game plays up to 6, and I don't see why, if you had a second copy, which I am definitely thinking about getting, you couldn't play up to 12 people. There's no reason. All these resources are unlimited. The game says if you run out of any of these, find a substitute. So there's no limitation to the resources. The game has no turns. It's just simultaneous, and then see what the points are at the end. So the possibilities for the number of players who can play this is basically endless. Folks, that is Tiny Towns. It is a fantastic game, just released within the past couple weeks. I hope you found it as enthralling as I have. Thank you all so much for watching. I do truly appreciate it, and until next time.